Welcome to Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation. The go-to podcast that helps you access intuitive guidance combined with mental health and spirituality. Let your intuition guide you and unlock a life of true liberation. And now your host, Becc Nelson.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Intuition Unleashed. It's a revolution in personal liberation. Today I am joined by my special guest, Jess Henderson. Hey Jess.
Hello.
So let me tell you what this session's about and why this is my special guest. Jessica is actually the executive producer of the Transformation Network, and which is the network that we're hosted on. And she has her own podcast called the Possibility Perspective Podcast. She works at the intersection of sort of media and messaging and personal transformation, helping to bring meaningful conversations to life, which is what the whole network does, and while grounding others to expand what they believe is possible. And through her work, she explores how alignment, authenticity, intuition influence not only personal growth, but the way that individuals show up in business, leadership, and decision making. So our focus today is going to be where all those pieces, the intuition and business and authenticity, come together. So welcome, Jess. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me.
I mean, this is truly a test to Jessica's experiences because she is also producing our show today. So where normally I get little notes in the chat, she is going to be too. We joked that the chat was going to be her higher self telling us, keeping us in check, but really it's still her. This show is all about using your intuition, and every session that we have, we try to talk about what that means from different perspectives and different types of services, and we try to bring in guests that explore that from so many different realms because it doesn't look like the same thing for everybody. So it's not just this is what your intuition looks like. Today, we specifically focus on using your intuition and following it when it comes to running your business, but also in daily life, and the pitfalls that happen when you know what the right thing is to do and you don't follow it. And then what begins to shift when you strategically use what you know is your intuition, what that feels like for you, how you know it's kicking in, and then what begins to shift when you finally start listening and allowing that to happen. And I know that you actually mentor other people too. Jessica is one of the producers.
I do, yes. And it shows up. It's funny because, the more you do your own work, then the results of that work show up in the work that you do. And so this idea of really being guided in your business and business decisions has, been showing up even more for me because of the work I'm doing on myself.
I'm so glad you said that. What a segue into the signature question that I ask everybody. Let's put you right in the spot. Let's start it off right. I like to ask people, everybody has an example of some time in your life when something happened to you, and at the time you were like, oh my God, why me? This is horrible. But at the time it didn't feel like a gift. But looking back now, then you can see how it was actually sort of an opportunity for growth, personal transformation. So I'd like to know about a story where that happened to you. How did that experience shape the work that you're doing today? And how do you use it in what you're doing now?
So the funny thing about this is and I imagine, so if you're watching this or listening to this, you're probably somebody who is on some kind of journey, personal development. You're into this kind of work, right? You've done some work on yourself. And anyone who's done any kind of work on themselves and has gone into introspection, you can probably point to like so many dots along your timeline when you could answer that question with any of those dots, really, in my opinion, because it's so easy to look back and be like, oh, yep, that's why. But for me specifically, kind of how it relates, because it was back on my timeline in college, and I was fired from a job. And I had to, so I was good at my job and they didn't really want to fire me, but it's a whole story of, I was working at a restaurant bar, and they would do these sting operations to make sure that you were IDing people, and I got stung. So what they do is they send in two people, one of them orders a drink, one of them orders a water, and if you don't card, then the police officer comes in, and then you get a contributing ticket, and the establishment gets fined, and it's a whole thing. And so in my defense, the dude that ordered the Bud Light had salt and pepper in his hair, was wearing a suit. The kid that ordered the water looked like a kid. Had the kid ordering the water ordered the Bud Light, I would have carded him. You know what I mean? So I feel like they really set me up. But anyways, I will let that go.
Sounds like gaslighting a little bit. But
I mean, anyways, the whole thing was, policy is like, if that happens to you in our establishment, you are fired. And it was just, I was just in tears because I loved that job. I loved the people. I was having fun. It was just income while I was going to college. And my manager at the time was also just in tears. And like at the time, I was like, I figured she was in tears because this sucks for her establishment also, and then I was like really bitter about the whole situation, and I felt like it was unfair, and I blah 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 blah. And I spent a really good amount of time being bitter and frustrated and feeling like, poor me, woe is me, and whatever. And it really took until I was in a position that I had to fire somebody. Like when the tables were turned, right? And I had done some work on myself, obviously, and I had let that whole thing go, but it was kind of looking at the different perspective of a situation when maybe your heart isn't all in letting this person go, but it's the thing you have to do, right? And the emotion that goes with that. And so that was kind of one of those full circle moments for me when I was like, oh, wow, okay. So it was a big learning moment for me.
was that recently that you had to fire someone?
No, I mean, get in the position that I'm in. I mean, I've let a few people go, I guess, over the last 15 years, but no, it wasn't recently. It was actually the first time I had to do it. And that was, I mean, even actually in that moment when I was told, you're going to be the one to do this. Also, that moment is one of those dots in time when I was like, seriously, you're making me do this? Why are you making me do this? Why, I'm not qualified to do this. What are you, and I felt like, I don't know, all the emotions with it. And also looking back on that moment, that was a moment of growth, maturity, learning what it is to be a leader, and, just kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool a little bit with like, this is what this is going to be.
It's hard because those experiences tend to be very humbling, and they usually are embarrassing.
Both.
They can be embarrassing.
Yeah, both. I mean, it sucked. I mean, it literally, like, no part of it was good. It on either side of it. And that's one of the things I think I learned, is that it's just sucks either way. And so you have to then kind of go into the higher piece of, sometimes you are helping somebody by releasing them into the wild so they can go find something better. For me, I was released from that job, and it probably saved me because that job had me partying a lot. I was just in that world, and I got released from that job and had to really look at what I was doing in college and had to put my butt in gear to actually graduate. And had I kept down the party path, who knows, right? Would I have really graduated or graduated on time or done the things I needed to do? So it was actually a blessing.
Right. Not in the moment, but
yeah.
You're kind of, I think, pointing to the fact that sometimes there's something in the universe that knows that you're not in the right space and offers you an opportunity like this to be able to think twice about where you are.
I 100% think that. I think that those are all situations where we're given, let's say the word contrast, and they are moments of choice and growth. Because for me in that moment, I could have chosen, I mean, I did for a little bit, a woe is me path, let me just absolutely go down the failure route and not pick myself up and completely self-sabotage and I'm the victim and, right?
Yeah.
Or you choose, okay, so what now? What am I going to do now? And what path do I want? And so you choose the path of, let me look at this time that I have now and be more productive with it and study. And I was a music major, so there was a lot of practicing I wasn't doing because I was partying. And so my life went from party into the night, wake up way late in the day. I was up at 5 or 6 a.m. and I would run or bike or walk to the school to then practice for multiple hours and then come back. And so that was time I wouldn't have been spending otherwise, right? So I chose a different path because of the situation.
I think when people are listening to this, I mean, there are situations where that happens and you do have a path. You could continue to say, well, fine, I'll find another job. It's easy to I can be a bartender someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the experience. You had the wherewithal in college to say, I need to pick myself up and take a different path then?
So we won't paint a rainbow picture of this. It took me a minute. I definitely woe-ised me for a hot minute there. But I mean, it was an interesting timeline because I think I was right at the tail end of my junior year. So it was or get off the pot. So,
right.
There was but there was a time period in here where I was definitely woe is me and I was looking for jobs and I was feeling, and then looking back now, it had to have absolutely been intuition or guidance of some kind that led me to go think about, oh, I should look into work study at the school as a job, right? Because I'm already at this. So, but how or what prompted me to do that? And then I actually got work study in the music building, in the music department. So it was exercise, practice, work, right in the same place. And so it was very productive. But all of that was orchestrated by someone else, not me.
Something higher than us, yes.
Yeah.
I think the universe, this is a great segue for this. I think the universe continues to give us opportunities to do what we really say. Honestly, they support us, right? So if you're in college and you're a music major, then you're saying, I have the intention of getting my degree and accelerating in this whatever. So the universe is seeing you in this job and not practicing and not getting enough sleep and focusing on this job. And the universe is like, we're just going to give you this opportunity to be able to go back to what you said your intention is. And this is really the definition of intuition, right? There's all these little seeds that remind us what you're going to be supported in whatever you say you want. But it may not always look gentle and be like, don't you remember that you came here because you want to get into music?
Exactly.
It kind of can look like sometimes you get your butt kicked and you get embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wouldn't have attributed any of that to intuition or the universe, intervening until much, 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 much later into my own work. I mean, I looked back on that time as just this kind of, show.
Huh? No, but this is perfect. So anybody who's thinking about right now, everybody must be thinking as they're listening to this that about an opportunity, about some situation where this has happened, and maybe it was happening for you, not to you.
Yeah, it's all perspective. I mean, that's why I started my show and why I do what I do, because I realize the lens in which we view things shapes the reality of it. And that past could potentially have it has actually, in my own mind, in my own lens, has had two different realities over time because of how I looked at it.
And our show is going to be about alignment. Which path do you choose? And is the path that you're choosing in alignment with what you say you want for your life? Because if it's not, then you're going to continue to get interventions or instances that show you that you're on the wrong path based on what you say you wanted.
Exactly. I mean, that's the perfect example of you are not aligned, and so we're going to smack you right back into an opportunity to choose alignment.
just so kind to do that for us, aren't they?
Yeah.
But people a lot of times will say, they want a reading and they'll say, what am I supposed to be doing? And the answer to that is you're not supposed to be doing anything. You don't come into this world with this, like, you have come to build an ark, that kind of thing, right? It's not something you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is find out what makes you happy, and then choose your activities and your goals based on what makes you happy. And then the universe will support you in that.
Yes, absolutely.
So speaking of that, let's go into the next. Thank you for sharing that very personal story. It's a great introduction, I think, to what we're talking about today, which is being in alignment. So let's start with that. What does that mean to you, being in alignment, in a way that's sort of, how do you define that and how do you apply that to actual everyday life?
Yeah. For me, alignment happens when our actions, our energy, and our truth, our being of who we are all headed in the same direction. Because I feel like oftentimes we could have one or two of those things that are heading in the right direction and the other one's like over here. So, example, the truth of who you are. And I feel like action has to be last. So the truth of who you are, right? And that's actually comes back to like a little bit of purpose. Like, so thinking about as an entrepreneur, there is this calling, this feeling of this thing you need to do. You need to do this. You need to serve. It's why we start our businesses, right? That's the truth. That's the truth. That's authenticity. That's who we are. The energy is kind of the why we're doing something, though. So if we're doing something because we're supposed to be doing it, are we doing it because it feels absolutely right or aligned? Or are we doing it out of scarcity and fear of, because if I don't, then this, right? So what energy are we doing the thing? And then when the action is taken from the right truth of who you are and the right energy, then we're in alignment. So real example, because this is kind of on the brain a lot with like entrepreneurship and posting on social media, right? So you could have you could be doing all the right things. Like you're posting often, it's all brand aligned, the messaging is on point, the things you're saying are truthful and like they're actually in your truth, they're from your own thoughts and wisdom. But the feeling that you're having when you're doing it is, man, I hate social media. Meta can go what themselves. I hate this platform and I hate doing this, and
Mark Zuckerberg.
and no one is ever liking or commenting, and so I don't even know why I'm doing this in the first place, right? The energy's off. So you're taking the right action and you're taking the right, and you're doing it from really here, like it's really truly your own messaging, but the energy's often doing it. So guess what? You are out of alignment.
Didn't we just have this conversation like last week? We're like, why? A podcast is a lot of work and we have to put all this into it. And what's the why? Go back to your why. Right? Yeah. That's a conversation we just had last week.
I feel like the energy piece, and the energy is kind of the intuition. It's the feeling, it's the knowing, it's all of those things. That's most often, I feel like, the piece that's off. And so, you would probably be able to speak to this better than me, how to get back to that, how to get back to that place.
I always joke in all of my podcasts that, when you first start in business, they talk about, find out what's the avatar of your ideal client. And every time I do this with somebody else or myself, it's always me. I'm my ideal client, right? So I always go back to, what is it that I need? And if I am speaking to somebody who's not me, then you can really feel that. Like, who am I really talking to? Am I talking to people that I think would benefit from this? Or, that's out of alignment for me, because I got to be who I am. I can't base on who I think might be interested in this, if that makes any sense to you.
Yes. Same idea with picking podcast topics, for instance. I'm picking my topics based on what I think people are going to most want to listen to, or am I picking my topics based on my own knowing and intuition of what the world needs, right? Am I filtering myself to please an audience, or am I coming back to the inner truth of the wisdom and knowledge I know I'm here to share, and I know it's going to hit the right people when it's supposed to?
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a client that I worked with who she's now in her early 20s. I've been working with her for probably 10 years, right? Since she was like 14 or something. She's now a young adult. She was in college because she was doing like a pre-vet thing. As we went along, I knew it's not really what she wanted to do. She did want to work with animals. And she kept getting like, her mom kept being like, no, you have to be able to support yourself and whatever. So I know she's going into it like, first of all, I've told everybody my whole life I'm going to be a vet. And now my mom is putting all this pressure on me to be able to support myself or whatever. So it's all these expectations, but she didn't love it. Or what we eventually talked about was she dropped out and she took a certification course as a vet assistant. Now, that doesn't mean she's not going to eventually go back and do it, but she works for a vet now, has that certification, and then she can see, is this something that I really want to do? Do I want to pursue this education? My current employer can actually help me with that. But now she's actually doing something that she wants to do and is doing that based on where her heart is, not on what others' expectations of her are, and also not driven by the embarrassment of, I've always told everybody my whole life, this is what I'm going to do. I can't let them all down, or I'm going to be embarrassed if I don't meet those expectations. And she was so much happier because it was such a struggle for her. It might be at some point what she wants to do, but it's not in alignment right now with who she is and what she wants to learn.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how the path we're on, for whatever reason, we create these just stupid, unrealistic expectations of ourselves that we can never deviate and never change our mind. And so that's maybe sometimes how we can get out of alignment, is because we're forcing ourselves down the original plan because we wanted to not be a failure or not be a quitter or not be whatever label we think is going to be put on that. But it's so completely, I mean, wow, I almost went on a bunny trail now about like divorce. But I was just like relationships, like how many relationships need to just not be, but they're so set on trying to stay on this path because they committed to it, but it's so out of an alignment now.
Well, it's also society, if we go back to that says you make your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah.
You can't change your mind. And can you imagine how many people like stayed in situations or marriages that they're miserable in? If people are listening to that now, shaking their head like, yep. And I'm staying in it because of my kids, or I'm staying in it because of my religion or whatever, because my parents' expectations. And this is what we're talking about. When you do things when you're out of alignment with who you really are, it's miserable.
It absolutely is. And I mean, I have to ask the big question. I mean, what kind of life do you want? What kind of life do you want to have? What kind of life, is, because quality of life is everything to me personally. And I guess the more mature I get, the more important that is to me. And so my efforts and my actions are about alignment, because in alignment, I'm thriving and flourishing. In alignment, I'm joyful and happy and in gratitude. In alignment, I'm manifesting all the things to me that I want to bring into my life. And so if I'm not in alignment and I'm just pushing a boulder up a hill, is that really a life you want to live? Because I think we forget we have a choice in that.
And some people feel like they don't, right? And some people's families or whoever tell them that they don't. And sometimes that's because I didn't have a choice, so you're not going to have a choice. And don't we want better for our kids? Ugh.
Yep.
So we're talking about life and being very general, but specifically if we talk about business or leadership, etc., how do you feel like, what has been your experience for how misalignment tends to show up in business or leadership?
Yeah, I think it shows up from a business perspective, taking actions based on what we think we're supposed to do in business, right? So, I mean, you know this. entrepreneurs get hit with so many different things that are, you need to do this way, you need to do this way, and you need to do this, and it's completely overwhelming and oftentimes contradictory information. And so if you are not in alignment and you're acting out of misalignment, you're just jumping at shiny things. You are just jumping at the next shiny thing because that's going to be the thing that's going to get you where you need to go. And you are completely spinning your wheels because all of those shiny things that promised you all of the glory and all of the clients and all of the followers and all of the things didn't work. Shocker. Because they were completely out of alignment. One of those things, any or all of those things could work, by the way. But it's up to us to figure out, like, with that little, like, radar, like, which one of these things is actually in alignment. And that's intuition. You have to be able to follow your intuition in those things.
If we could hone in and help our viewers to figure that out, because I'm sure I'm not alone in how much money I have put into programs that promise that they're going to be the one that helps you to get the clients, and this is the thing that you need, and then you do it and you're like, okay, that wasn't it. How can our listeners discern that? Discernment, that's a good word.
So I'm not sure if this is going to answer the question, but I do think it's our beliefs. It's our beliefs when we make the decision, right? So are we making the decision to go after this shiny thing in the, I really need this to work and I really hope this works because if it doesn't, fill in the blank, right?
Okay. So
we're going into that with already kind of a belief that it's probably not going to work because we're going into it with like a fear and a thing,
desperation,
right?
A fear and desperation.
A fear and desperation. I need this to work, right? We're like strangling it. And so before we make the decision, this is where I think having a mindfulness practice, having a meditation practice, having a coach or a mentor to even just like, sometimes if you're like me, you could journal, but I'm an out loud processor. So I could journal until the cows come home and it's not going to like get me what I need. I need to out loud process with somebody. That's me. So I think you have to figure out what tool, right? Is it meditation? Is it journaling? Is it out loud processing with somebody? But you got to find like what you need. And then before you go into decision making, you got to get yourself into a place of neutrality so that you can listen to your intuition. And then you can make a decision from an empowered state, not from a state of fear. And then it doesn't matter which shiny thing you chose. Because then you're going all in energetically on it and you're in the right belief system and you're going to take the right aligned actions within whatever that framework is.
Okay, so what I think you're saying is the program itself is not as important as your intention and energy going into it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and because I've done this, I mean, Becc, have you ever made a decision where you're like, may or may not have had a couple of little intuitive flags pop up that you dismissed and you went with it anyway? Because
Absolutely.
you dismissed them.
I'm sure you have many stories of that. And if you had any, do you have any of those that you want to share?
I mean, I'm trying to think of one at the moment, but I mean, the idea of it is like, you're like, okay, I'm going to make this decision and I feel pretty good about it. And then it's like something happens, right? Something happens and you're like, ooh, interesting. Well, whatever, right? That thing you maybe should have listened to. And looking back, you're like, yeah, I should have listened to that. But so I don't want to be taken wrong in that every decision is going to work out as long as you have the right beliefs. Like there are like things that sometimes are just there to teach you something.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sometimes we're just in that and we made that choice and it is a lesson and a learning but you still got something out of it too. So that's the belief part, right? So the decision wasn't a wrong decision because from that you learned something, you gained something. Maybe it wasn't the ROI you thought you were going to get, but you gained something out of it. So that's all beliefs, whether you think things are working or not working.
It's hard to also ignore the price tags on some of those lessons.
Yes. Yes. But,
Like
you know,
this
that's like a whole
program-
other conversation around like circulation and just, yeah. And now I'm going to put my producer hat on and say, because I forgot to look at the clock before, it is time for a break whenever we're ready.
So my producer's telling me that it's time for our 2-minute break. So when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about the gap between knowing what we should be doing and actually acting on it in 2 minutes.
Join us on Kaleidoscope for Becoming every second Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Talk Revolution, where you are invited to revel in your becoming better and brighter on purpose. This isn't just a show, it's a prayer disguised as a podcast, and together we are evolving on purpose. Visit www.celestialempowerment.com for more information.
Are you ready to break free from self-sabotaging patterns and reclaim your power? I'm Becc Nelson, licensed therapist, spiritual mentor, and psychic medium, helping individuals achieve true personal liberation through my Beccology framework. This step-by-step system shifts your mindset, strengthens your intuition, and empowers lasting change. Work with me through single sessions, 90-day or 6-month programs, or explore my courses, books, and coaching. Visit becknelson.com to get started.
Do you want to better understand and embrace neurodiversity? I'm Dr. Lori Noto, with over 30 years of experience working with diverse and unique individuals. Through my consulting and purpose-driven life coaching, I focus on empowering individuals with disabilities. My passion is advocacy, providing the tools for neurodiverse individuals to thrive and feel included in classrooms, workplaces, and communities. Unlock the potential of possibility, power, and purpose. Connect with me today at notoholisticconsulting.com.
Welcome back to everybody to the second half of Intuition Unleashed, and my special producer slash guest today, Jesica Henderson, and we're talking about your intuition and the cost of ignoring your intuition, staying aligned, and particularly in business. So Jesica, where we left off was talking about when you start to get those red flags, and I don't think that a lot of people might be able to look back, and you'd have to think about it. I think right after this session, sometimes people are saying, oh my God, now that we're talking about this, I can see some things that I ignored about this relationship. That comes up a lot, right? But also in business or choosing a job or that kind of thing. You get this little, sometimes it shows up as a tweak in your stomach. You're like, someone says that your gut tells you it's just not right, and you kind of ignore it. So what happens, like, can you give me some examples or a story about a time where like you felt a lot of those, we call them red flags, and you proceeded anyway, you just kind of ignored?
Yes. Okay. And actually I have two, because I want to go all the way back to the original story with the college story, because during my floundering phase, when I was looking for other jobs, I found a job and I applied, and it was at a bar, and it was to be a cocktail waitress. So I was going right back to the path that I was in, right? I was trying to get right back on that path. And the first red flag was they wanted me to wear this kind of like sexy referee like shirt tight thing and like tight pants, and I thought, oh, okay, well, whatever, I need the job, right? It wasn't provocative, but it was just like they were very specific around like they wanted it to be tight, and I was like, okay, whatever. And
say that to you?
Right, I mean, I was like, is that even legal? But anyway.
Why?
Anywho, so first night on the job, my friends, they wanted to come support me. They're like, yay, you got a job. And so they come in to have a drink, and I get them their drinks, and they're like, there's somebody siphoning gas out of somebody's vehicle in the parking lot. And I was like, huh, all right. So, that just tells you like the kind of environment and like place we were in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third flag, it's escalating. So like, this is like interview, and then first night on the job. I think it might've been my second or third night on the job. A patron of the bar, put me in a full Nelson. I don't know if you know that, like where they like come up behind you and like put both your arms up over your head. And he did it jokingly, but it's like so inappropriate and so out of line. And like right then and there, I should have probably just turned around and decked him, which I probably would have gotten fired for, but that's what my mom taught me to do. Anyways, so third red flag, and I just kind of like, okay, that was unfortunate, continued on. And then I had like a few days off from that job, and so I had actually gone back to my hometown, and I played in a basketball tournament, like a kind of a fun, I don't know what's that called, alumni tournament. And so I played, and I had it was kind of an impromptu thing, and so I didn't have the right shoes or anything. Anyways, I came back from that tournament unable to walk. I had done something like my right leg, like my foot, kind of leg, ankle, it hurt so bad. Like I got up out of bed one day and I just like screamed in pain. I had never felt that kind of pain before. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take myself to urgent care because I don't know what is going on. I didn't like sprain my ankle or anything. And so they checked me out, and it turns out I had a stress fracture. And so they were like, well, basically we can give you some crutches and basically just stay off of it for 2 to 3 weeks was kind of their thing, right? Because you're not going to like really need a cast or anything. They're just like, stay off it. So I crutch into my then job I had just gotten, right? I'd only been there like a week. And the manager was like, well, yeah, you can't do the job, and we hired you because we needed somebody, so you can pick up your last paycheck on payday next week. Like, that's it. You're done. So
another hiccup. The universe is like, we told you. You didn't listen. So now we have to tell you again.
Yeah, really. So, we're going to literally give you this injury, so you literally cannot physically do the job to get you out of this environment because you ignored flags 1, 2, and 3, and there's probably a fourth one I'm not even remembering. And so it had to, for me, because I was so dense, it had to escalate to a physical, literal kind of slap in the face moment again, where it was like, yeah, you're not supposed to be doing this, girl. And so that's one example, that for me personally, and lessons learned from that, right? I've lessons learned and also mistakes repeated from that, I guess, because I think that's what happens, right? You still have flags show up in your life, and you sometimes get it and you sometimes don't. I think that's just part of the human experience, and the growth.
Maturity plays into that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the second one was way later in my leadership role, and it was during the hiring process. And it was during the, there was like little flag during the interview process that was like, oh, maybe this isn't quite the right fit. But there was enough evidence of it is a good fit. And it was, so going back to those 3 things, actions and energy and truth, right? So the energy in which that hiring decision was made in we just got to get somebody in here.
I see. Okay.
Right? So therefore, even though some of the things were aligned, there were just a couple things, and it wasn't major, but it was just one of those things that made you, if you weren't operating in a desperation, I don't want to call it desperation mode.
Intention.
But you're not, so if we weren't operating from that place, right, you just got to get somebody in here. If it was more of a like, let's see and wait and be patient for the right fit to show up, we were not in that mode, right? Mm. And so flag ignored, make hire, and then person comes on and starts doing the job. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, we're good. You know, you forget the flag even ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the long game here, right? The flag never existed now in your brain. And so then time goes by, and then there's maybe little things like didn't do a few things. Or I'm kind of making this up now, but this really happened, but to protect the people involved, I'm, you know, elaborating on the story a little.
Okay.
So let's say a few things didn't go right or didn't happen. And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's kind of address that. But then the energy you get back from that is a little bit of a red flag, right? Like not a like, oh, whoopsie doopsie, let me make up for my mistake. It was a little like, kind of don't care.
Oh, okay. Not defensive, right? Or like it's your fault.
No, just kind of like a stone face, like, okay. So that was a pretty big flag in that moment. But there's little old me who's just wants to see the best in everybody.
Uh-huh.
And so that is, those goggles are like overriding the flags that you see. And then, over time, and I would say this was like, a good several months, like of time, well, like several months from like everything's good, then a flag, then several months, and then a flag, right? And then all of a sudden it's like hits you, and it's almost like everything becomes clear, and you're like, this person is not honest, has no integrity, has no care, has no anything. And then you have to go question yourself, because then now you're still not remembering all the flags.
Yep.
And so now you're looking at yourself going, oh my gosh, like what happened? What, did I do something to make this person like all of a sudden flip personality or flip whatever, and insert business or insert relationship into this story, because that's what we do. We tend to make ourselves to blame for whatever reason in these situations.
Yep.
Why, Becc? Why do we do that?
Well, yes, that's right. That's a great question. I think there's a lot of reasons. Well, I think a lot of people can come up with a whole bunch of reasons why you're saying ignore those red flags.
Yeah.
And I guess it also depends on, are we talking about in business or relationships, right? Because I'm also a relationship counselor, and I just had a client leave here before, and we talked about her whole marriage. Like, how did she miss who her husband really was, and now they're divorced, and people beat themselves up. But I think that you feel like you do ignore the things that you see and think about them later because of what you tell yourself your goal is at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if, like you said, your goal was, we just want to get somebody in this position, we really need to, we're all overworking we really need this to work smoothly, and so you do ignore all those little pieces. Or in the when you're like, I'm going to go back to another relationship and I'm going to wear this tight little uniform, and oh, isn't that cute? But the money, I'm going to make a whole lot more money in tips doing this job where, okay, so I have to wear this little outfit, and it gives you the icks, and maybe you make that little face in your mind like ick. But money can be a factor in that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, my takeaway from all of this, my self-coaching and all of this is like, you grow and you learn in every single one of these situations. That's all they are, is opportunities. They're opportunities to really, self-forgiveness, grace, giving yourself grace and understanding, self-love, but then also get empowered in the next time, right? And remind yourself how to listen to or pay attention to those things, because they were there. And again, we were just in the wrong energy, so we dismissed them. And ultimately that whole story, though, I mean, it wraps up to that person being released from their duties, and I'm sure probably, like, I fully believe, I don't know this, but I fully believe they're gone and found the thing that was the right fit for them and in alignment for them, because it was misaligned on both ends, right? It doesn't mean they're bad or a bad person. It doesn't mean that we are bad or bad for hiring them. It's just, it was misaligned. And so they get to go do the thing that is more aligned for them. And then we were able to open ourselves up and be in a different space and find people that were perfect for us.
And I'm
And
sure it'll feel good for either side at the moment.
it's horrible. It's horrible in the moment. And that's the thing that I think we're all working on and works in progress, is in those moments being able to kind of almost have that outside looking down perspective of, this is a blip on the bigger picture and it's all good. It's all going to be fine in the end. And I actually, in some of these cases, I found myself being able to get to that place a lot sooner.
Because of the learnings that you've had from previous.
Yeah, that in practice. I mean, you have to be willing to practice and know and, embody these things, right? We could talk about it in theory all day about intuition and alignment and making decisions from the right place. You can talk about that, and you can talk about that in theory of what you need to do, but until you actually commit to doing it in practice, it's not going to get better or easier.
And it's not always easy. Sometimes you have to look like the bad guy or let other people down or spend more money or whatever that is, or work harder in the meantime. Now, in that particular case, the example that you gave, you're talking about a couple months that it took you to understand this wasn't the right fit, etc. Did that person agree, by the way, that it wasn't the right fit for them too?
In the end, absolutely. In the end, it didn't it's almost like it came to this kind of really uncomfortable head. And then in the end, that final kind of conversation was yeah, this isn't good.
It's not aligned on either side.
Yeah. And
so,
yeah.
So what do you see that has happened? What's been your experience when somebody knows something isn't right and then stays anyway? They just always ignore that.
That's where depression comes from. That's where, it's not where it comes from. That's not a clinical thing, but I'm careful, Jessica, stay in your lane. But that's, let's just say, unhappiness, right? Unfulfillment. When we stay in misalignment, we are completely unfulfilled, unmotivated, unhappy beings, and we're not truly living.
And unsuccessful. And those are the people that come to me for counseling and say, I just feel off, I just don't feel like I'm not happy and I can't put my finger on it. Even when on paper, it looks like things should be I'm making enough money, I'm supporting myself, I'm in a good relationship, whatever. I do all the things that on paper, I exercise every day, blah, 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 but I just still feel like something's off, I'm not me.
Yeah.
And is it really depression? Right? Is it really clinical depression, or are they just not living in alignment?
Yeah. Yeah. And the awareness that they have that something feels off, isn't that intuition? And to start, something's telling them that's intuition, right?
And so that can show up in a number of ways, right? Their intuition. And a lot of times it's just you just have that ick and you can't put your finger on it. It just feels like something's off. So why do people not act on what they already know? People already know I have this ick because I'll talk about it later in a relationship, whatever. I knew something was off and I ignored it.
Change is scary. Change is hard. Change is that's almost that ego of let's just stay where we're at because that's easier than making a change and completely throwing myself into a different path. Right? It's scary. To choose alignment can be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about these people that say, I chose something that was in alignment and it still didn't get any better? Right? Because then they're using that as an example of, well, see, I did that and I listened and it still didn't help.
That's beliefs. That's your beliefs telling you that things aren't working. That's absolutely all in here. You have to change your beliefs.
Mm-hmm. You have a story about that, like somebody that did all the right things and they didn't change their beliefs.
Yeah, me. I'm working on it.
Okay. See, we're our own best avatar.
I mean, all of this just comes from my own experience and realizations and, getting coaching and support and taking programs and just figuring my stuff out and my own beliefs around, even finance and business success, my own fear, like deep, deep fear of what happens if I actually become successful. What does that mean? That is something I'm still working on. But if that belief is underneath everything that I'm doing, every sales call I get on, every, website I'm updating, every new offer I'm creating, if that belief is that underneath all of those things, I'm taking and choosing alignment and action. I'm doing the thing I know I'm supposed to be doing. I'm in my purpose. That part of me is aligned. So by definition, I'm in alignment. But if it's still not working, then there's a belief underneath all of that that's keeping it from working.
You meant there's a lot of beliefs you can have, right? Because if the other side too, if you believe I'm probably not meant to be happy or I'm not meant to be successful, you're going to block yourself. That's the thing. But you said one that sounds crazy, right? I'm not saying you're wrong, but why would I not want to be successful? Why would I be afraid to be successful? Somebody might ask. That's ridiculous, right? But talk a little bit about that. It is.
It's the what would change, right? Would I change? Because what I'm successful in, so for instance, I come from a small town, small community. I've heard things like, oh, they're too good for us now, right? So there's these kinds of fears of what would people think of me? Would they look at me differently? Would I still have the same friendships? What about my family? Would they be happy for me? Would they be envious? Would then I have, like, I'm talking like wildly successful, I'm a millionaire, millions of dollars. What happens? Am I going to feel obligated to then give that to people? Because I've got people pleasing stuff I got to work on, so there is this, that's what I'm working on. And I'm actively healing and working on that for myself right now, because that's the block that's kept me from absolutely skyrocketing.
So there's a term that we use in the therapist role, systemic therapy, that we call homeostasis, right? It's a biology term that means a system wants to maintain itself. So if we think about our relationships, or our relationships in our family or in our work or whatever, or with ourselves as a system, everything in the system wants to maintain exactly the way that it's always been. Mm-hmm. So, and if, everybody in a family or in these system roles you're the one who does is X, Y, and Z, right? You're the one who is the ambitious one. You're the one who doesn't show up on time for things, whatever. If you change that, you are no longer in alignment. Your system gets thrown off. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're the one who has no money, for example, or is always not successful, but then you become successful and now you have money, you're absolutely right. There's that fear that you don't even think about, which is, what is it now? Who am I going to be? Mm-hmm. And am I going to have the same friends? Am I going to be able to hang out with the same people? Are they going to think I can't keep up with that? So will I lose some of my friends? If I am really, really heavy and I become really, really thin, is my spouse going to leave me? Or are people at work not going to treat me the same, or whatever? And these are the things that we don't know that we're subconsciously looking at, or we're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the work we have to do on ourselves. And I recommend working with somebody like Becc because when you work with somebody, they can hold up a mirror and help you see the things that you just don't see. I only got to that knowing and realization and belief about myself. I didn't come up with that all on my own. I've had help getting there, and I'm having help getting through it and coming out the other side. So yeah, it's just work we can choose to do.
And then I've recently added hypnotherapy as a part of my services. And sometimes you can get to those underlying beliefs about yourself, like your inner self will actually come out and identify what will really happen if I have a lot of money. Because my family's always said people with a lot of money are a bunch of a-holes. So my family, if I'm successful, am I going to be an a-hole? Right? As an example.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, so talk about one way someone can start to tune into their intuition, particularly in business.
You gotta shut out the noise first, because I think there's too many things coming at you in business all the time from every direction, and too many cooks in the kitchen, let's say, in terms of advice. And I think you got to go back to your, like we talked about earlier, you got to go back to your why. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose? Why am I here to serve? Like, what's the service I'm here to offer? And then if you're in that state, and then again, you can journal, you can meditate, you could out loud process it. Your answers will come. They absolutely will come. And then you'll know the next right action to take.
This is a great closer, because I don't know if you noticed it, that when you were saying that, you were doing this. It really, you will feel it in your heart. If you sit and close your eyes and think about, do I want to do this? Should I process? Should I go through with this? What is your heart telling you? What do you feel when you start to say that? What is in your body? Because your body, it really is reflecting your intuition. And what is the energy of that? Am I doing this because I'm anxious? Is it doing it because I'm worried about it? Am I really just worried that I'm going to be successful, but I really want to do it? You really need to listen to your heart. I don't even know if you realized that you did that when you were saying that.
It was automatic. Yeah.
Yes, because that's exactly where your intuition lies, right? Here, your solar plexus, right? What do you feel? Thank you, Jess, for being a part of this very interesting discussion. We certainly need a lot more of this, but what I really hope is that people start to understand that there are red flags that they might be missing. Why are they making the decisions that they're making? Is it out of desperation? What's the energy that they're going into with? Reflect again, those three pieces. Energy. What were the other two?
Energy, action, and your truth.
And your truth. And you can certainly, this is just a beginning of this discussion, but thank you so much, Jess, for coming on and talking about your own experiences and adding to this discussion about our intuition today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jess. Until next time, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Intuition Unleashed. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. But before you go, we have one little challenge for you. Most of us have sneaky little habits that hold us back and trip us up, so why not take this not at all uncomfortable quiz to find out what you do to derail yourself from achieving your goals and how you can call yourself out on your own BS. So get to know your self-sabotage specialty and take the first step towards getting out of the way of your own success. Just visit https:/becknelson.com/quiz and take the quiz now. That's becknelson.com/quiz, and we can't wait to see your results. As always, we'll be back next week with more Intuition Unleashed. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.